just really poor episode. And they try, and I do feel like a lot of people though are clouded by the cheesy Grogu scenes and the action sequences. And I think you're right. Action sequences don't make it up. But again, I haven't watched John Wick, but a lot of the things I've heard from it is that's what it is. It's just action set piece after action set piece, and it had its biggest box office ever, and people actually were enjoying it. And so I do think that there are some people that just want to see that, and they don't really care about any kind of logical story.
Yeah, well, my understanding with regards to John Wick, what's at stake is the fact that it's all comes down to if John Wick wins, he's able to, leave again and not have to worry about this world anymore. Okay. And if he doesn't, obviously he dies, and the
there are some at least stakes there.
But who he's fighting is so important within the organization. I guess that once he's killed, that's going to cause a ripple effect within the organization. That's my understanding, because I haven't yet seen the fourth one yet. But I'm like, that's still fairly good stakes, because after the first film, it reignited a fire in him to get his revenge, to get amends made, and then that comes with consequences, which we saw in 2 and 3, and now is culminating in chapter 4. And I'm like, oh, cool. So if we're getting an actual resolution, it's like we've got a proper buildup, we have proper stakes, we have character-driven moments for it. Here in The Mandalorian, things are just happening, and we're not quite able to understand what's at stake, what are the consequences of what's going on. It's literally just showing us snippets of the state of the galaxy and whatever they're trying to build to try and say, yes, the Empire is not destroyed or what have you. It's done in such a passive way that it's almost forgettable at this point. It's like, yeah, the Empire, I remember them.
A lot of this, it has just become forgettable. I think the only thing people will really remember, I mean, aside from me, I'll remember the Rhino scene because I just hate that scene so much. People will still remember the Luke scene and him owning the droids. And I think that's about it. And maybe they'll remember the Grogu for him eating the eggs or something, whatever. But yeah, I don't think these characters will hold the test of time. I just don't think that. I mean, everything we're seeing, even from like merchandising, it looks like the rumors and stuff we're hearing from them is that that window is already kind of closing, and it's only been 2019, so 4 years, not even 4 years, because it was at the end of 2019.
Yeah,
and we're already seeing interest in these characters wane, and it looks like it's kind of just shutting down.
Oh my God, that is descriptive.
Yeah, I'm not going to read that. JEC says the last 3 John Wick sequels were just a series of action scenes. That's what I kind of got from 2, and I don't even really remember 3. I think was 3 the one with Halle, the first one with Halle Berry? I don't even remember.
The 3 had Halle Berry, I think, in it.
3 had Halle Berry.
I think the second one had Ruby Rose as a mute.
Okay.
Or I might be getting them flipped or whatnot. But no, 2 and 3 did not have the same type of weight that the first one did. The first one had a lot of weight, a lot of It was minimalist, and I think it was for
his
the
wife
best
and
of
the
it.
dog. Yeah,
his wife had passed, but before she passed, she got this dog ordered for him named Daisy, and
it was a revenge flick.
Yeah, he was just getting attached to the animal, and all of a sudden these jerk offs that wanted his car just do this horrible thing to him, and it's like you don't know who you're messing with.
Yeah. Clearly. So, yeah. But I mean, the fourth one definitely had the biggest. I don't know. I feel like it's on one level, people are realizing that this is bad because you look at the Jack Black episode. You look at especially look that one.
How little has happened over the course of this season.
Yeah. But you also look at the third episode, which I think we both agreed on this one. That was kind of the most well written, aside from the fact that it ties in to sequel trilogy and has a lot of obviously the canon and continuity errors overarching. But as far as like a single episode, I felt like it was the most well written. You actually had that internal struggle with Dr. Pershing. But that's the worst rated of the entire season. But I think that was like the best written one, but it didn't have any actual. I guess it was bookended with the action sequences with the
Mandalorians, yeah.
At least the first one, we had the opening Starfighter sequence defending, or I guess her castle was just getting bombed, and then them showing up at the end to talk to the armor. So you get the action at the beginning, and I think that's maybe why you didn't see the response, because I'm wondering if you get a higher score. I would wager that episode gets a higher score if you put the action sequence at the end, because people are remembering the action sequence rather than anything that comes before it, and that's how they rated off of that. And that's what Marvel does extensively. Big giant action sequences at the end to have your endorphins going, even though everything that led up to it was just absolute garbage.
Well, that makes me wonder, are the diehard fans that are watching the show, are they more into the Star Wars video games than they are into the movies and the lore and the books and whatnot? Because all I'm seeing is stuff that, you'd get excited for if you were playing a video game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to play, I mean, I can recall like Super Star Wars, the Super Star Wars games on Super Nintendo, where you'd have fun achieving all this stuff going through the levels, but then you're playing that the last level where you're fighting Darth Vader, and it's an okay stuff, but it's kind of like very mechanical. But then you get to the next tier of games like Dark Forces and Jedi Knight, where you're fighting tons of Jedi or huge squadrons of people with force powers, and you're having a lot of fun with it. But you kind of know in the back of your mind, this isn't really Star Wars, because Star Wars is a bunch of intimate stories where the results of those actions end up having a ripple effect with regards to the rest of the galaxy. And now
I think George calls it like George has described it as like a soap opera almost.
Yeah,
soap opera,
drama. A story between fathers and sons in that regard for at least the first 6 films. So so it seems like we're getting the opposite here. We're getting like all this galaxy, the everything that's happening in this galaxy is specifically influencing this one little group of characters, and they're just kind of reacting to it, and we're supposed to empathize with them because of this, even though we're not getting much with regards to them, how their society functions, what's at stake. It's all very generic.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, again, I feel like I've said this a lot of times just with the scenes, but I feel a lot of it is just contrived, very forced to get like especially the death scene. It's just to try and trigger you with an emotional death, even though there's no actual build up to it with that character, and the fact that he doesn't even need to die. He chooses to do it instead of like, it's like he's committing suicide almost, because he could have escaped, but he chooses not to, and that's kind of the overarching problem with the whole series, is that you've got just these random events that they try and connect together in this very forced manner that doesn't really make any sense based on the previous force thing that they just showed us. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but
no, I think that's pretty adequate. That does the job. We're just, the other part too is I can expect Bo-Katan saying, Paz Vizsla died so that we could survive, so we have to honor him by being one united thing. And it's like, okay, that's at least a byproduct of the action, but the way you got to that action didn't feel earned. Feel
exactly.
justified.
No, yeah, you can definitely see that that's going to be something that they're going to try and do. But again, like you're saying, that's the same problem with that emotional weight of that death on us as the audience. I didn't feel it because I felt it was just he was committing suicide in the first place. He chose to do that.
Yeah,
he could have just ran away, or he could have retreated with the rest of them. It wasn't earned.
It wasn't
he
earned.
Wasn't doing a lot.
Like it was the only option in order for them to escape. And the fact of the matter is that, like, Bo-Katan used her Darksaber 4 minutes too late. Instead of cutting into it and then actually giving the Mandalorian a shot of survival or at least rescue, and maybe even fighting Gideon, which I don't think he'd be prepared for if Cardoon cut open that blast door and charged at him.
Right.
We don't. Also,
did you notice that there was no like rocket? They didn't use any kind of ordinances either. It was just blasters. Like we've seen them have. If you remember in season 2 when they're attacking that Imperial ship in wherever they had the JCPenney sweaters. Remember that?
On the island, on the waterfront. Yeah.
Yeah. So they
used their jetpack.
Din has grenades that he throws into the door, basically, and takes out like the group of stormtroopers that had defended that area. And like even that was better written because the stormtroopers are there defending that to the last. The stormtroopers have a more earned death than Paz Vizsla.
They really did, yeah.